A cargo truck clears security and heads for an abandoned factory. But inside, it isn't hauling goods, it's hiding a passenger. His name is Chris. The driver suddenly demands more money. Sitting beside him, a thug brandishes a machete, ready to enforce the threat. But they picked the wrong man to extort. Chris sidesteps the blade, kills the driver, and floors the thug with bone-crushing blows. Around here, almost no one can fight like him. Chris is on a bloody mission years in the making. His path leads to a cemetery, where he spots a young woman, Eliza, mourning at a grave. He follows her discreetly to her school, but holds back. A crowded campus isn't the place for what he intends. That night, Eliza returns home to her father, Vincent, a wealthy, possessive man who smothers her with affection since her mother's death. When Vincent discovers someone has been contacting her, his tone turns icy. Elsewhere, the city trembles. In a cake shop, a deranged man torments a clerk at knife point. A police officer intervenes only to be ambushed and murdered by an assassin waiting in her car. The next day, Chris makes his move. Disguised as a homeless man, he approaches Eliza's car at an intersection. Her guards confront him, but they never stand a chance, and Eliza is shoved into the trunk. Chris vanishes into the city, leaving Vincent seething with rage. He places a bounty on Chris's head, summoning killers from the underworld. In the mountains, Eliza fights back, slipping free and striking Chris with a wrench. But when he shows her an old photograph of himself with her mother, he reveals a stunning truth. She once wanted him to take her away from Vincent. Eliza refuses to believe him. To prove he isn't lying, Chris lays down his gun and lets her aim it at him. She pulls the trigger only to find he'd replaced the bullet with a blank. Furious, she demands to go home. At a gas station, she calls her father for help. Locals misread the situation and rush to intervene, forcing Chris to fight them off without killing anyone. Dragging her back to the car, he finally blurts out the truth. "I am your father." The revelation leaves Eliza reeling, her world tilting. But Vincent's bounty is already closing in. That night, as Chris and Eliza eat quietly at a street-side stall, Chris opens up. He spent 15 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Her necklace reminds him of her mother, the woman he once loved. Though Eliza doesn't resemble him, her temper is exactly like his. He even voices his suspicion that Vincent murdered her mother. A gang storms in with guns raised. They claim Eliza for themselves, mocking Chris to sit and wait for death. Calm as ever, they hesitate and Chris strikes like lightning. He disarms one, cripples another, and dismantles the rest with ruthless precision. Their leader, however, grabs Eliza, slashes Chris's tire, and escapes. Chris beats the answer out of a survivor with a fire extinguisher, learning she's been taken to a casino. Inside, the gang leader waits, eager to sell Eliza for Vincent's bounty. She briefly reaches her father by phone, but when she asks about her mother and whether he's even her real father, Vincent panics. Terrified of the truth being exposed, he hangs up. Then the casino becomes a slaughterhouse. Corvo has arrived. Bullets tear through dealers, bodyguards, and staff alike. When his gun's empty, he switches to steel fists. Upstairs, Eliza fires an entire magazine at him. Just as he corners her, Chris arrives. For the first time, Corvo faces someone who can fight back. As Corvo raises his arm for the killing blow, Eliza intervenes, drawing his fury onto herself. Chris explodes with desperation, tackling Corvo through walls and onto the hood of a car. The battle rages, bullets spraying from a machine gun until the magazine runs dry. Corvo grabs a knife, cutting down survivors as Chris struggles to stay on his feet. At last, Corvo's spinning kick sends Chris sprawling. He looms over him, ready to end it when Eliza slams a car straight into his body. Chris seized the moment and escaped with Eliza. But Corvo wasn't dead. Against all odds, he stitched his wounds shut and resumed the hunt. On the road, Chris revealed the truth of the past. Years ago, he, Vincent, and Eliza's mother were an infamous trio of thieves. Vincent betrayed Chris, turned him over to the police, and stole his wife. Meanwhile, Corvo prepared for his next move. When two thugs mocked him on the street, they didn't realize who they were insulting. Corvo sank his teeth into one man's face, spat blood, and pulled a gun to scatter the rest before stealing their car. Elsewhere, Chris and Eliza finally stopped to rest. Then he revealed a painful truth. Her mother had once visited him in prison, confessing her plan to escape with Eliza. 3 weeks later, she was dead. Back at the casino, Vincent arrived only to see the surveillance feeds filled with slaughter. And then his blood ran cold. On the screen was Corvo, the demon he thought had been buried years ago. Chris and Eliza stole another car and drove on, but Eliza soon realized the road led out of the country. Furious, she lashed out. Her entire life was unraveling, and she refused to run any farther. Their argument boiled over, and she stormed away. Chris ran after her only to nearly be struck by a car. Behind the wheel was Corvo. Eliza turned at the sound of screeching tires, but it was already too late. Corvo cornered her, but at the intersection, she collided with Chris. Both raised their guns, only for Corvo to seize her. Chris had no choice but to surrender. Beaten and bound, Chris was barely conscious when Corvo demanded, "Who are you?" to her. Eliza finally screamed the truth. "He's my father." The revelation sparked Corvo's twisted fascination. When Vincent later found Chris strung up, he realized he couldn't let him die, not yet. Chris was the only one who could help save Eliza. Along the way, Vincent confessed the truth. The last time they hunted Corvo, all 15 of his men were slaughtered. And now, that monster had returned for revenge. At an abandoned factory, Vincent tried to bait Corvo while Chris flanked from the shadows. But when they arrived, every one of Vincent's men was already dead. Corvo emerged, dragging Vincent toward a conveyor belt lined with spinning saws. Chris attacked, igniting another savage showdown. In the chaos, Corvo revealed the final, devastating truth. "Years ago, Vincent paid me to kill her mother." Just as defeat seemed certain, Eliza tore off her diamond necklace and hurled it into the shredder. The unbreakable gem snapped the chains binding her. Enraged, Corvo tried to throw Eliza into the machine. Chris intercepted him, locking the assassin in a death struggle. In the chaos, Vincent made one last attempt at betrayal, but was dragged screaming into the blades by the very monster he had unleashed. Broken and bloodied, Chris finally turned to his daughter. He apologized, the weight of years of absence crushing his voice. Eliza wept at her mother's grave, but this time she wasn't alone. Her real father stood beside her. So does Diablo's Revenge live up to the hype?